Okay. Good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to apologize for the late start to those. We're supposed to be here for 1 p.m., but we had a long technical delay this morning. So this afternoon we have 15 items, one's being deferred, one being closed. So we have 13 items. So here we go. Due to COVID-19, Committee of Adjustment public hearings are being conducted virtually by electronic means through WebEx webinar, an online digital platform and streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. Participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx webinar, which is moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may watch on YouTube. Participants who have registered in advance will be connecting with their computer, tablet, smartphone, or telephone and have the option of participating via video or audio only. All participants will automatically be muted on entry. When your item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. We ask that you also mute your devices until you are called on to speak. Those participating by video appearance will be temporarily upgraded to panelists when your item is being held. During this time, your camera will be enabled. You will only be visible during your 5-minute allotted speaking time. At all other times, your video will be disabled and you will be reinstated as an attendee. Committee of Adjustment staff will share presentations submitted in accordance with the written submissions deadline. Members of the public and participants are not allowed to use share screen or any other panelist controls during a video appearance. The host will remove you from the panelist role if you fail to respect this instruction. Land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land we're meeting on is a traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with Sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning that applies to the property, permissions to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consents to sever properties to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wants to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and email address because the Committee of Adjustment and the TLAB, in the event of an appeal, will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee rendered here today, decisions may be appealed to the Toronto Local Appeal Body or in some limited circumstances to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. The hearing procedure will be as follows. We'll call each item in the order listed in the agenda after first dispensing of at least one item being deferred and one item being closed. In making your submissions where an application is not contested, the applicant or agent may proceed with the presentation if desired, and the committee does not require a presentation. Applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to speak to the committee. The committee may ask questions and or take the matter into the committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee and will comment when you're approaching the 5-minute mark and ask you to wrap up. When addressing the committee, please start off by clearly stating your name and address, and please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent proceeds first and makes their presentation to the committee. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals made at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if substantially revised in order to ensure that the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application are informed of the changes. Then individuals either in support or opposed to the application will be invited to speak, or those with concerns or questions. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they finish their presentations. And when all speakers are finished, the applicant or agent is given an opportunity to rebut only those issues and answer those questions that were raised by the speakers. That will then mark the end of discussion on a matter, and the application is then taken into committee for a decision. Are there any declarations of interest of panel or staff to declare for the items before us in this afternoon time slot? None to declare. Okay, thank you. We have, we'll go through the deferral list. There's one item, and first of all, we do have a file to be closed, item number 24, 73 to 75 KINCORT, which was an application to construct a new industrial building. We've been advised that this file is to be closed. And I believe there's no one here appearing on this. Madam Secretary Treasurer, can you weigh in, please?
Yes, they've made the request based on not needing the application anymore.
Okay. Wonderful. So I guess we need a motion to close the file. Mr. Taylor, thank you. Just saw your image appear.
I'll move closure per the applicant's request.
Okay, and the seconder for that. Ms. Alderson, thank you. All in favor? Okay, the file is closed. Okay, there is one item on the planning deferral memo, and actually one that I have a question on as well. So the first one is item 2367 River Cove Drive. This is to construct a new dwelling. And we do have a revised notice. Sometimes that indicates that the party has satisfied planning. Let's hear, the applicant is Juan Martinez, agent for the applicant. Hold on. Yes, correct, RIVERCOVE. So
yes.
Can you enlighten us? Planning is looking for a deferral for reason D2. I believe that means they haven't had enough time. Is that the one, staff? But I do see that you have a revised application, which is up on the screen right now. So staff D2, I don't have it in front of me. That's for request by, because staff hasn't had time, or revisions have to be made?
To review the application to discuss concerns, potential changes, or secure revised material.
Okay, Mr. Martinez, you're aware that Community Planning has asked, first of all, they've asked this application be deferred for the reason number 2, for changes to be made. It's there in order to provide adequate time for staff to review the application, discuss any concerns, obtain potential changes. Are you aware of that, sir, first of all, and are you in agreement?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Yes, we are aware of planning's recommendation. However, we have had discussions with planning staff, and we have made revisions that were asked of us. Not only that, we have had discussions with TRCA and Urban Forestry as well, and we believe that the minor revisions made have made this application very straightforward.
Okay, so you like to go ahead. You'd like to go ahead, notwithstanding they've asked for that. They have said that if we don't grant the deferral, they recommend refusal. But if you can obviously satisfy the panel members that you've satisfied their concerns, so we'll put you back in line then. In view of that, I don't know if we have to make a motion. The applicant would like to proceed. Do we need a motion because we have a formal request from Community Planning? Madam Secretary Treasurer, I guess I should put that to the members.
Yes, please.
Yeah, the Urban Forestry is looking for denial as well as variance number 6, and transportation has no objection. So on the issue of the deferral, I guess we need a motion as to whether to defer or not. The applicant is advised that as they've made changes to satisfy planning, they would wish to proceed. So a motion whether to grant the deferral request from planning or to proceed this afternoon. Mr. Taylor?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would move that we hear the application.
Okay, thank you. Seconded for Mr. Taylor's motion. Ms. Reddick, thank you. All in favor? Okay, we will hear it this afternoon unanimously. Okay, so stay tuned, Mr. Martinez. You're one of the first you're the second application we'll be hearing. And yes, could we just call Madam Secretary Treasurer? I have a note here, and actually it's item number 30 where I've just been advised we do have an additional speaker. That there is I had made a note when I did my review about a memo from the applicant, June 8th, something about can partake with this application proceeding to the next available hearing. Does anyone see anything? Is that a deferral request or not? So I guess I have to ask Trevor Gain.
No, so this application was previously deferred. We have the minutes from January 27th, 2022.
Oh, I see. Okay, but
They
no,
made
but
revisions.
oh, June 8th. So this was a recent deferral. Again, sorry, I don't have in front of me the list which indicates when these matters were deferred from. Okay, so my mistake. Okay, so that was with respect to the previous time, even though it is dated June 8th. I figured that was more approximate. Okay, so we can go back and start with item number 21 with everyone's permission, unless there's anything else to deal with.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, just a quick note on item 21. The registered speaker at 8439th Street, Scott Crow, doesn't appear to be on the line as of yet. My colleague Adam reached out to him via email, and I have phoned him, left a message, and we're not able to reach him. So we'll refresh again, but if he still isn't on the line, he'll still receive a copy of the decision.
Okay, and I see other than that, the only speaker we have is the agent. We do have the owner on the line. I would assume the speaker is going to be Syed Ahmed, the agent for the applicant, and not the owner. Is that correct?
Good afternoon.
Okay, so just to construct, this is to then just quickly introduce this matter. This is to construct a one-story sunroom on the south side of the existing dwelling. There's one variance. We have a previous decision from June 4th, 2009, which was for a sunroom and a deck. That was at the rear. This appears to be on. So this is the second pending sunroof, a separate sunroom seeking permission for.
Yes, sir.
Okay, it's not the same one. So they did get a sunroom approval in 2009, just to clarify. And we have nothing whatsoever on file with respect to, other than a advisory from Metrolinx, and we have a copy of the previous decision. And you're the only registered speaker. We don't have the neighbor on the line at this point. Is there anything you'd like to advise the committee of, or can I just see if they have some questions for you?
Yes, please go ahead. There's nothing else I would like to say. There's one minor variance, which is the requirement is by law is 1.8 meter, and the proposal is 0.9 meters. And hopefully that application will be approved for our second sunroom over there.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Ahmed?
No further questions, sir.
No, I'm saying I'm asking the members if they have any questions for you. Okay, and if not, if we don't have Mr. Crow on the line.
No, Michael, he's still not here.
Okay, it looks like he's across the street. He's not next door. Okay, members, any questions, or if not, is someone ready to weigh in with a motion?
Danny Bellissimo is ready to weigh a motion if there's no questions. This proposal is in the interior of the site. Don't believe it has negative impacts on the adjoining neighbors, so I would like to move for approval. Find the variance is minor in nature.
Thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. Seconder for that. Mr. Taylor, thank you. All in favor? You have unanimous approval, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, our next application.
Sorry, Michael, it's Danny Bellissimo. Was there a condition of forestry I forgot to add to that?
I don't see one. Does anyone see one?
I see it on the forestry list. This is 21, right?
Yeah, yes, there is one, urban forestry number 2.
Yes, I thought so. Could I amend my motion to include that?
I would certainly permit it.
And I'll amend my seconding as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 22 is 131 Silverstone Drive. It's an application to construct a new dwelling with an attached garage. And there are 3 variances. Planning is recommending refusal of variance 3 for the first floor height above the established grade. And impose a condition for 1.5 meter privacy screen on the northern side of the proposed rear balcony. TRCA, no objection. Urban Forestry has looked once denial of variance number 1, and Ravines has no condition. Speaker of this application is Nadeem Irfan, the agent for the applicant.
Yes, Mr. Chair, my name is Nadeem Irfan, NIA Architects, 10 Milner Business Court, Suite 710, Scarborough, Ontario, M1B3C6.
Thank you. Don't believe we need a fulsome presentation. Is there anything you'd like to advise the members of?
We have communicated with the community planning.
That's what I wanted to know. You do have a negative plan. They want you to refuse variance number 3.
We agree with that. We agree with that. We agree to delete the variance number 3, which is the first floor height.
I see. Okay, that's a good thing to know. Anything else you'd like to advise the members of?
No, Mr. Chair.
What about the urban forestry? Is there? I don't see them on my list of conditions open, but I see they did want variance 1 refused.
Okay, so we have communicated with urban forestry. We submitted them and also the RNFP urban forestry report, the arborist report, but they refused to review it. I fail to understand how does that variance number 1 impact the city tree. The front yard setback is the front yard setback. That's where we are starting. We're not going to go, the variance number 1, which is the building length, is towards the back. So I think it's a little bit, I don't understand why they have this condition. We do understand there is a city tree, and we will be happy to work with that. We have an existing driveway. We'll maneuver around the tree, and we'll be happy to take the approval with the condition for the urban forestry approval.
Okay, thank you, sir. Members, any questions for the agent?
So are you withdrawing variance number 3?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Taylor?
And may I ask if the agent is okay with the planning condition about the 1.5 meter privacy screen along the north and south sides of the rear second floor balcony? Are you aware of that and okay with it?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, we are aware of that, and we agreed with the community planning recommendation.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions, or someone ready for a motion?
Danny Bellis would like to clarify this condition by forestry. Their condition is to refuse the application. Is that not correct? Because he was saying the applicant said he was okay with that condition. It's number 5.
He was okay with the planning condition. That's the urban forestry deny variance 1. He's saying, how can that be? It's a front tree and it's a length variance.
Okay. So in other words, he's not agreeing to the condition.
No.
Okay, fine. Just wanted to clarify that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or clarifications, or is someone ready to weigh in?
Danny Bellissimo, find the variance of minor nature, so I'd like to approve the variance number 1 and 2. 3 has been eliminated, and no conditions except for the. So planning has a condition for the screening. So
is there another fallback urban forestry? I don't have my list given the
yes, there is
fallback.
There is, Mr. Chair. Their memo dated July 5th. The fallback would be condition 1, city-owned tree.
And in that case, I would add condition number 1. I don't see it on my summary sheet. That's fine. And then the recommendation from planning, which is their number 2, which is the balcony privacy screen.
Mr. Chair and members, the forestry comments are on the screen for your review.
Okay, so we have that as an amendment. Mr. Bellissimo, you've added that to your motion. Do you have a seconder for that motion? Ms. Alderson, thank you. All in favor? Okay, unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Irfan. Okay. Next application, we're back to Mr. Martinez on 67 River Cove that we've decided he wishes to proceed. It's an application to construct a new dwelling. There were 6 variances. There are now 4. They've eliminated variances 5 and 6. We have a cover letter. We have the plans and the zoning waiver eliminating variances 5 and 6. Urban forestry is looking us to deny variance 6. which is now removed. Transportation has no objection. Ravines has no objection. And TRCA has no objection, but advises a permit is still required. And in the additional package, we received an arborist report. We only have the one speaker, Mr. Martinez. Go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon, Sir Chair and committee members. My name is Juan Martinez, located at 900 the East Mall.
Okay.
If I may, I would like to have a full presentation on this application.
Yeah, can you do that? And please include the fact of why you're saying that the amendments you've made, just let us know how that satisfied the fact that, well, we didn't have a planning memo, but we had a deferral request for the reasons
Correct.
I stated at the introduction earlier today. To
Correct.
get you to make changes and to fully have the chance to review. So please go ahead.
Through you, Sir Chair, I would like to start this presentation by noting that the subject property is extremely constrained by the natural features and topography of the site, which necessitated extensive discussions with TRCA regarding the proposed dwelling in relation to these features. Now, if I can ask staff to pull up the site plan, yep, that's the one up on the screen. Originally, the dwelling was contemplated to have the driveway on the east side of the lot and the covered patio and hot tub features to be on the west side of the lot. So on the opposite sides of where they are currently proposed. However, as you can see, if I may ask staff to zoom in to the dwelling, as you can see, the long-term stable top of slope, it's closer on the western side. So TRCA, through our discussions, requested that we essentially flip the house. This revision resulted with the driveway being located essentially where the tree is on the west side of the property, and the covered deck and hot tub are on the east side, which is further away from the long-term tabletop of slope. The driveway has been proposed to curve around the front tree. And it's designed as such to avoid any injury. We have retained a professional arborist to review this proposal, and it was concluded that since the construction of the driveway will only require 6 inches of sensitive excavation, the tree will remain safe for retention and its long-term survival is not likely to be compromised by this work. Of course, this application will go through the urban forestry permit process in any case, as well as if we look at the memo provided by urban forestry, they tied their denial to a variance that has now been deleted. Now, in regards to the variances, we have discussions with planning staff, and the recommendations from planning staff have been made, which were to delete the driveway width and the soft landscape variances of 5 and 6, and these have now obviously been deleted. Now, in regards to the variances that we have in front of you, the proposed FSI of the dwelling is at 0.54, where the bylaw permits 0.45 times the lot area. It is important to note that this variance was calculated using the developable area of the lot and not the actual lot area. And this is again because of the constrained natural features of the lot and the TRCA regulations. If the entire lot was calculated, the FSI of the dwelling, it's 0.2 times the lot area. Now, looking at the variance itself, the general purpose and intent of the FSI is to, in part, regulate the size and massing of the dwellings. By considering that the proposed dwelling complies with all building setbacks, all building heights, depth, length, coverage, the massing of the dwelling proposed is not an overdevelopment of the site, as the massing is in a location that is already contemplated by the bylaw. We have also found numerous approvals within the neighborhood for this for similar and higher FSIs, and the average is actually 0.6 FSI of the average approvals within the neighborhood. Thus, I am of the opinion that this FSI number it's in keeping with the character of the neighborhood and will have little to no impact on the adjacent properties. In regards to variances 2 and 3, these are again directly related to the TRCA setbacks, and through our discussions that we have done with TRCA, and as mentioned in their report, they have no objections with this application. Based on this justification, through you, Mr. Chair, I am of the opinion that this proposal fits in both with the existing and planned context of the neighborhood, is consistent with the redevelopment trends along RIVERCOVE and the broader neighborhood, and I believe this application represents good planning and it meets the 4 test under Section 45(1) of the Planning Act. And I'll be happy to answer any questions should the committee have any.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Martinez. Before I turn over to the members, I'm just going to make a couple of comments on a situation like this where planning asks for deferral and we don't know why or what their concern would have been, and we put it to you to satisfy that. Here's why I would be more satisfied here, is that all your variances, including the first variance, you said you're actually at 0.2 if the total property other than the top part from the top of stable top of bank would be at 0.2. So I believe that all of your variances are related to the folks that look after our green space, the Ravines people and the TRCA people who seem to be satisfied with your application. With respect to, there is a letter of opposition to the neighbor next door. And again, the complaints, if members have reviewed that, seem to be with the issue about the issuing with the stable top of bank and construction and excavation and concrete planters. So it's not saying we don't like this house. We want, that we have a problem with the GFA or the FSI. So that would just be my comment, that we don't know. Community planning, we don't know what it is, but here I figure out that the Ravine people, everything's related to that. That's just what I say. Members, any other questions for the applicant, or do you have any comments?
No comment other than to agree with you, Mr. Chair, and to commend Mr. Martinez on an excellent presentation that helped make those key points. That the key approval authority on this one is the TRCA. They have no objection. Again, we don't know about the planning department's request for a deferral, but based on the evidence before us, I'd be quite content to proceed with a decision on it.
Okay. If anyone else have any other questions or comments, or Mr. Taylor, okay to proceed? Okay, I think you're good to go, sir.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion then, Mr. Chair, to move approval on grounds that the application meets the 4 tests. And that motion would be subject to urban forestry condition 1.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a seconder for that motion? Ms. Reddick, thank you. All in favor? Okay, you have unanimous approval. Thank you, sir. And
thank you very much.
Thank you for that presentation, Mr. Martinez.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your comments.
Thank you. So item number 25 is our next application. It's 153 Perry Crescent. It's for a detached dwelling with an attached garage. New one, obviously. And there are 9 variances. We have a revised yellow highlighted agenda sheet, and it looks like 2 of those 9 variances have been reduced, being the depth and the length, and by about 3 meters almost exactly. Each in each case. Other than that, we have planning requesting a refusal, 7 letters of support, and looks like another 3 attached together with that. Their concern seems to be the rear yard setback and the main wall height. We have a presentation materials and the additional materials, and the speaker is Arlene Beaumont as agent for the applicant. Welcome, Ms. Beaumont.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. As you said, Arlene Beaumont, Outred and Associates. We are the agents for the property owners. I have been dealing with planning on this for a couple of weeks, and we're asking to go forward today. I would like to respectfully disagree with planning, and I provided a presentation. If we could take a look at that, please. So the first slide, next slide after this one, shows the proposed front elevation. We're requesting 9 variances, as the chair mentioned. Next slide, please. And 3 of those variances are very much related to the very odd shape of this lot. So the side yard and combined side yard, as well as the rear yard setback and the platform encroachment variance is all related to the odd lot shape. If you go to the next slide, please. Yes. So there's a site plan. You can see that the 1.09 meter side yard setback is at a pinch point at the front of the dwelling, and the rest of that side yard or the rest of the dwelling does comply with the side yard requirement. So it's only at that one point that we have an issue. Oh, sorry, could you go back, please? Yes, thank you. So the blue highlighted area is the area of the yard that planning is considering as the rear yard. So that's technically the rear yard. However, for practical purposes, I would say that the area that's highlighted in green is the rear yard. That's where the homeowners are planning to put their pool. That's where all the landscape amenities for being in your backyard are going to be. And I would say that blue area that I've highlighted really functions more as a side yard. The intent of having a rear yard requirement is to make sure you have sufficient space for amenity area in your yard. And in fact, they do have that here. Next slide, please. So we, as you mentioned, we did reduce our variances for building length and building depth. We have a variance for driveway, 6 meters wide, but that is only at the widest part. The driveway does reduce as you move towards the garage door, and it's a single door entry into the garage. So the driveway reduces to the width of a single car or a single door at the front of the garage. The proposed coverage is very low. The variance for proposed coverage is very low, only 1.6% greater than permitted. Next slide, please. The FSI is a little bit higher. We're at 0.58, whereas 0.5 is permitted. But I would like to note that that FSI also includes some of the garage area below grade. The proposed height is 8 centimeters. The proposed height of the dwelling is 8 centimeters over the bylaw. The proposed height to the top of the chimney is 11.08. But again, it's only to the chimney. It's the actual dwelling is only 8 centimeters high, higher than permitted. And the proposed height of the main wall is 7.74, whereas 7% is permitted. We believe that the size and height of the dwelling is in keeping with other new builds on Perry Crescent, as well as Bywood and Gulf Crest. If you could go to the next slide, please. So I've done a little neighborhood mapping here, and as you can see, all of the properties highlighted in red are new builds. I would agree with planning that Perry Crescent itself, or this section of Perry Crescent, has not undergone a lot of change. The houses on either side are original to the neighborhood, and many houses on this section of Perry are sort of original 1950s, 1960s homes. However, on other streets, particularly those properties backing on or close to the golf course, there are very large replacement homes that have been built. So that's where I would disagree with planning, that this home is really very much in keeping with other new builds, especially those on the golf course. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, just with respect to that rear yard, we believe it actually functions more like a side yard than a rear yard. And the portion of the house that is next to the neighbor's home, in back side by side, is a 1-story portion, and that's illustrated on the next slide. Sorry, next slide again, please.
Craziness.
Yes, here we go. So you can see the original house, which is next door at 155, and that is on the right-hand side of the screen. And then on the left-hand side is the proposed new home at 153 Perry. You can see the part that extends into that rear yard is a 1-story portion. That's a master bedroom area of the home. So we're matching sort of one-story
Miss Beaumont, can you please wrap up?
Sure.
And
okay.
I'll make a comment that the fact you've had to speak for 5 minutes on this is
Okay.
Just please wrap up. But,
Okay,
we
next
have
door.
we have the neighbors in support, right? Both
Okay,
of
yes, we
Jason?
do. So we have neighbors into support. Both side neighbors are in support, as well as 6 other people on Perry Crescent.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for that presentation. My only comment, I've been again reviewing the planning letter, which I don't know if they let these people out of the office, but or they're robotic. They don't point out the fact that this is a very, very, very unique lot when they're looking at doing their survey of the other lots and what you pointed out. So that's just my comment. Let's see if anyone else has it. There is no one else here in opposition or registered to speak.
Danny Bedissimo would like to make a comment and make a motion if there are no questions by the members.
Yep.
This is, as you say, a very unique site. It's tucked in a corner, has very little impact on the surrounding neighborhood. And she's got a lot of support here. So I'd like to move for approval of the variances as presented to us today. And I think there's a forestry condition here. Yes, current condition by forestry. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Mr. Taylor, thank you. All in favor? You have unanimous approval. Thank you, Ms. Beaumont. I think you're a speaker on another application. I just hope I may have to switch. I've been notified my iPad is running low on power. I may have to switch to another iPad, but hopefully I'll be able to. It seems to be depleting more the faster we can do it. And I assume we don't need a break. We haven't even got another hour. So let's keep going unless someone wants a break at this point. Okay, let's proceed. The next application is item number 26, 7 Charleston Road. It's an application for a detached dwelling with an attached garage. We have revised notice. We had 3 variances and they've all been now revised. Hold on. Sorry. Yeah. All revised. We have revised plans. We have forestry is looking to deny variance number 1. We have a petition of support with 4 signatures. And we have 1 speaker registered to speak, and Anthony Del Grosso, the agent for the applicant. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Anthony Del Grosso, and I'm the agent for 7 Charleston.
Okay, it looks like you made changes to all your variances. Is that a result of conversation with city staff, or?
Yes, we worked with planning, and they requested that we adjust. So we've worked with them to get these numbers down.
Okay. Wonderful. Committee member, do you like to advise the committee of anything, or can I just see if anyone has any questions for you?
Danny Bellissimo was ready to make a motion if there are no questions.
Okay.
In this application, a lot of changes have happened and the variances are minor in nature, just fractions of a meter. So I'd like to move for approval of the variances. I don't believe there are any conditions then attached to this. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe there's an urban forestry condition on this. If I could make that friendly amendment, I think it's urban forestry number 1.
Oh, I thought it was number 5. Sorry. Is it 1?
Number 1 is.
Well, no, they wanted number 1 refused, but that was before, I believe, before the revisions.
Thank you. If that's the case, I'm fine.
It's, in lieu of that, it's number 1, urban forestry condition.
Thank you. Thank you for clarification.
Okay. So that's my second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Okay, you have unanimous approval, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great afternoon. Thank you.
We will. Okay, item number 27 is 345 Prince Edward Drive North. This is an application to construct a new in-ground swimming pool, a spa, pergola, patio areas, and ancillary structure in the rear yard. There are 2 variances. We have a revised notice for the agenda. Variance 2 has been revised. That would be the soft landscaping in the rear yard has increased. And we only have 1 speaker, Peter Milton, agent for the applicant. Welcome, sir. We do have a letter of support from the neighbor right next door, 347.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. I'm Peter Milchin, 296 Mill Road, Suite PH5, Toronto. I'm the agent for the applicant. They are constructing a rear yard pool and ground jacuzzi. The issue around the coverage arose because they had 2 sheds in the rear yard, which complied with the bylaw because they were under 10 square meters. But with all of the other work, they decided to connect them with a wall and a covered roof to have an open lounge area. So that created a structure which triggered the coverage issue. And the soft landscaping, we spoke with planning and we've agreed to increase the amount of soft landscaping, but it still requires a minor variance. I believe it's consistent with what's being developed in the community generally, and certainly consistent with the intent of the zoning bylaw. And as we've heard from support of one of the neighbors, the impact, if any, is minor on anyone.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Milzen, or is someone ready for a motion?
I'm ready for a motion if no one has any questions. I'm satisfied this application meets the 4 tests under the Planning Act and move for approval. I don't think there are any conditions other than the neighbor wants a swim.
Yeah. Keep friendly with your neighbors. Okay,
Yes.
I'm going to switch devices here. Hello, am I there? I have to just unmute myself. Okay.
So I made the motion. I'm just waiting for a seconder.
Okay, I'm back on a different device now. Quite
Okay.
incredible. And I'm now even seeing closed captioning. Okay, we have a seconder for Ms. Alderson's motion.
Sophia Redico, second.
Thank you. All in favor? Okay, I assume we have unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Milson. Have a great afternoon. Okay, so our next application is item 28, A, B, and C, 1983 Kipling Avenue. This is a consent to sever the lot into 2 properties to create easements, rights of ways. Combined for the the address to one to be the existing Home Depot to be maintained, and then the redevelopment of the other side is the site of a new self-storage facility requiring variances to the bylaws outlined in application B. Okay. The speaker for this application, perhaps it's David Mackay. We can let him go through and go through the information. I believe we have transportation conditions. We have comments from development engineering and the additional materials, cover letter, supporting materials. Planning is advising that they will comment through the site plan control review process. And we have a petition in support and a petition in opposition. And okay, let's hear from Mr. Mackay.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of committee. Perhaps if staff can put up my presentation. I won't take too much time because I know that you are quite busy and a little bit delayed. So as you mentioned, Mr. Chair, the application is to develop the unused portion of the Home Depot site for a self-storage facility. We have been working with city staff through the site plan approval application, and we're nearing completion of that process. And that's why you see the support letters from the various departments. The consent is to, if you could go to the next page, please. And so that's the site. And if you could go to the next page. So the consent would create the blue lot in the light blue. The existing Home Depot would remain. There would be access easements to access the existing driveway system that connects over the hydro corridor to Kipling Avenue. There are easements in place for that today. So the easements are only over the Home Depot portion of the site in favor of SmartStop. There is also a servicing easement that wraps around the proposed building for a water service that needs to be relocated that services the Home Depot. So those are the easements and the lot creation. If you can go to the next slide, please. As you can see, the development is for a typical self-storage building that includes the parking both within the building as well as to the exterior. As I mentioned, we had worked diligently with staff to get to this point to move it forward. And if you can go through the next couple of slides quickly, it's just showing the elevations of the proposed self-storage building. And perhaps go to page 9, which outlines the variances we're seeking. And similar to other self-storage facilities, Mr. Chair, there are obviously increases to density, which I have outlined both examples that have been approved, including ones most recently, I think at the last committee or two by yourselves, for similar types of densities that are being requested. We are asking for some setback reductions, and those relate to the pinch points created by the severance itself. Typically, we would like to treat the lands as one for zoning purposes, and that avoids those types of variances. But zoning staff did not accept that, so we needed to go through these individual variances. And then the parking, as you're no doubt aware, self-storage does not require significant amounts of parking, so we are reducing it, and that's what is supported by transportation staff. With regards to the barrier-free access, it relates to the fact that the provision relates to the original bylaw requirement, so that not to the varied requirement. So that's why we're varying that access, the barrier-free, but as noted by transportation staff, that they are acceptable of that condition. So with that, Mr. Chair, I do have a number of other slides, but I know that you don't have a lot of time, so I'll be happy to answer any questions, and we can refer back to the slides as required if you have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Panel members, any questions for Mr. Mackay?
Mr. Chair, sorry, you did mention something about opposition and support, and I didn't see anything on the file, so I don't know if that was a different file.
Did I see something? And I was, maybe it was on the next. Okay, I think.
Okay,
it may be on 600 Dixon Road. I followed. I think I'm on the other line. Perhaps it's on that there's a. Hold on, the next application.
There is a Metrolinx advisory.
Yeah. Okay, but there's no petitions in support and oppose, I believe.
No.
I did mention that. I think it's in the next one. Okay. Any other questions, or is someone ready for a motion?
Mr. Chair?
I don't see everyone's, that's what I can see everyone's.
It's Taylor with his hand up. Okay, you can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, if there are no questions from anyone, I'm prepared to make a double motion, one on the consent, one on the minor variance.
Okay.
With respect to the consent, I think this is a very reasonable development proposal in a sort of a commercial industrial kind of area. So I move approval of the consent subject to the conditions requested by engineering and I always forget what CS stands for. Engineering and construction services and transportation services. And I find the minor variances to meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act, and I move approval of that application without conditions. So that would be.
Thank you, sir.
Actually, can we just put the ECS conditions on the variances because they relate to the parking standards?
Okay, yeah, I'm good with that then. Sure.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, seconded for Mr. Taylor's motion.
Danny Bellissimo.
Thank you. All in favor? And again, in my cell phone, I can't see everyone's screen for some reason. So it's unanimous?
It's unanimous. Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Mr. Mackay.
Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.
Okay, our next application is item number 29, A, B, and C. And this is 600 Dixon Road. And is this is this one of the ones starting with the previous deferral, or is it the next one? Because this seems very familiar, but I don't have was this matter previously deferred? 600 Dixon, or am I just confusing it with something else? Anyway, this is a request. Okay, to obtain a request to sever the lot into two lots and create various easements and rights of ways. There's going to be the existing hotel and restaurant will be maintained in the retained lots, and the introduction of a new car rental office facility, which will require variances. And the assigned lands will be redeveloped at the site of a new hotel and office building requiring variances to the zoning bylaw set out in C. And then there's various easements and rights of way. And we have before us two planning comments, I believe. I believe they've advised that will comment through their site plan on this application, as this will be proceeding from site plan. Okay, so let's turn it over. We have one speaker, Matthew Lakatos Hayward, agent for the applicant.
And Mr. Chair, just to let you know, there are comments from Transportation Services, and they do recommend conditions, but those conditions aren't worded in a way that they can be achieved properly. So they've advised in a further email that they can achieve the road widening through the site plan process.
Okay, so in other words, members that don't have to rely on those
conditions
set out in their memo attached in our bookmark.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so Matthew Lakatos Hayward.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you just go to the applicant presentation material, please? I will try and keep it brief. For the record, last name Lakatos Hayward, first initial M. I'm counsel on behalf of the applicant Dixon International Hospitality Group, Inc. My address is 333 Bay Street, Unit 3400, Toronto, Ontario, M5H2S7. And I'm here today to present about the consent and two variance applications for 600 Dixon Road. Next slide, please. So I'm going to just quickly provide some overview and describe the proposal, but it is my submissions today that these variance applications satisfy the 4 tests under the Planning Act, and the consent application satisfies the conditions set out in Section 53, Sub 24 of the Planning Act, and should therefore all be approved, subject to the conditions, which I now understand are to just be addressed instead through site plan approval. And the reason for these ultimately is that this is not a new application. Our client has previously received an approval with respect to this proposed development, as well as site plan approval. Our client's application now largely relates to interior configurations and the severance, which I will discuss in my presentation. And as well, this application maintains and is consistent with that application, including with respect to supply of parking. Next slide, please. So this is just the site context here. As you can see, the subject site has an approximate boundary with the black line and is triangular in shape. The red parcel is a separate parcel owned by Infrastructure Ontario and leased to Hydro One, and our client has historically maintained leases with Hydro One to use that site for overflow parking. I believe there are currently 132 parking spots on that site. There is also an existing 5-story building on the site. These next two slides just show the zoning and official plan designations. It is zoned for employment uses and is designated as core employment uses and is recognized as provincially significant employment under the growth plan. If you could just go to the next slide, please. I would also note, just for context, members, the subject site is located right next to the 401 and is located about a 5-10 minute drive from Toronto Pearson Airport. And in fact, a significant amount of its business is reliant on tourists coming in from Toronto Pearson. If we could just go to the next slide, please. So what is being proposed here today is to construct a new hotel and an office building on the north end of the site. And so this was the previous decision that was approved in 2020 to construct an 11-story building adjoining the existing building. And this was approved on condition, with one condition being to maintain at least 104 parking spaces off-site on the Hydro One lands that I showed you earlier. And our client obtained application or site plan approval in 2019. It is currently working with community planning on an amendment to that to reflect the severance. Next slide, please. This is a site plan showing what the new lots would be. So as you can see, the red dashed line shows the site would be divided into two: a northern parcel and a southern parcel, and the various easements for access, for parking, and for servicing would be registered, which I will just very briefly take the committee through. I would note, if you could just go to the next slide, please. Variances are required for the existing building, largely as a result of the severance and as a result of the parking supply, and these are being addressed through the various easements. Our traffic consultant did an analysis and found that parking demand would be met on site, and Transportation Services has reviewed. Next slide, please. The variances for the new building largely relate to interior configurations. What's being done is various voids in the building are being repurposed to create a new mezzanine floor. And in addition, some of the space formerly occupied by the mechanical penthouse are being repurposed for new office uses. So the actual building footprint and envelope are not changing. It's just but as a result of this repurposing of space, additional density is required, and the technical building height and parapet wall heights are increasing as well. The next slides are just show and describe the various easements that are being required. I see I am running out of time, and I'm happy to answer any questions as to how that configuration is set out. But in short, these easements are being designed to allow for the integration of both sites, both for access and to provide for parking to the existing building, both above ground and below ground. And as a result, it is our opinion that the application meets the 4 tests under the Planning Act for both applications, and also should be approved because they meet the conditions set out in Section 53, Sub 24 of the Planning Act. Subject to any questions from the committee, those are my submissions today. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, you're muted.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Lakatos Hayward? Okay, I can't see in everyone's screen, so if there are, just speak up. If not, is someone ready to make a motion? Mr.
Taylor?
Luckily, you're one of the people I can see.
Can you see me, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
You can?
Yep.
Okay, good. I'm prepared to move on these applications for consent and minor variance. Firstly, with respect to the consent, I think it's quite reasonable and appropriate to do a severance to accommodate a hotel immediately adjacent to an existing hotel. With respect to the minor variances, I find them to be minor in nature and meeting all tests under the Planning Act. So I move approval of both the consent and the minor variance applications, all without conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Any Bellissimo seconds the motion.
No, there would be, there's always standard consent conditions.
Oh, yes, sorry, so the standard conditions of consent.
That's yes.
Yes, sorry.
Oh, but no planning and no forestry or anything.
No.
ECS, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we have a seconder by Mr. Bellissimo. All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Lakatos Hayward, and have a great afternoon.
You as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members.
Okay, thank you. Our next application.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Sorry to interrupt. I just have to do a quick sound check.
Okay.
Ahad Hack, are you there? I don't see you on the list, but you're present here. Ahad? Ahad Hack? Okay. Sorry about that.
No problem, Annalisa. Okay, the next application is item number 30. These are all the rest of the afternoon. We are dealing with items that were previously deferred. So this was deferred back in January 27, 2022. It's for the new detached dwelling with attached garage. We have one variance, FSI 0.4 permitted, seeking 0.73. And we have 3 letters of opposition. We have the materials from the previous hearing, and we have in the additional materials, Mr. Trevor Gain, the agent, responding to the letters in the AIC, the letters of objection. So we do have 2 speakers here, Trevor Gain on behalf of the applicant, and as well Arlene Beaumont on behalf representing various owners on 10th Street. Number 1, 22, 27, 31, 33, 40, 45, and 47. Speaking on behalf of those neighbors. So let's first hear from Mr. Gain.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, committee members. My name is Trevor Gain. I am the agent here on behalf of the owners.
Yes.
So, yeah, I'll continue. Just as a quick reference, we were in front of this panel back in January, as you mentioned, for a new 2-story house. Part of that application, we submitted numerous photos and previous decisions within the 500-meter radius to kind of support our application. Prior to the hearing, planning staff wanted to review our data because we were pushing that our house was in character with kind of the growing development that's happening in South Etobicoke. However, they offered or proposed deferral number 2, which is just to allow planning staff to review the material. The deferral was granted, and we've been working with planning staff ever since to kind of come up with a mutual arrangement. Ultimately, what we did is we adhered to some of the conditions. Planning staff mainly wanted us to remove the height variance or lower the height variance, lower the floor space index, and kind of get rid of the perception of a 3-story house at the time. 3-story houses are allowed in this area. There's no bylaw that says you can't, as long as you meet the height or you apply for height variance. Regardless, we did a complete redesign. We got rid of the height variance, we got rid of some minor landscaping variances in the front yard, and we lowered the floor space index. Working with planning, they deemed that these changes are acceptable, and that's the proposal here in front of you today.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Because you basically eliminated everything other than the one variance at which says at 0.73, and there's no height variance or any restriction on a 3-story. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Gain before we hear from Ms. Beaumont on behalf of the neighbors? Okay, if none, let's hear from Ms. Beaumont.
Thank you very much. As you noted, I represent a number of parties on 10th Street. They are all close neighbors to the subject property. First of all, I'd like to say that they are generally happy that the proposed height and proposed floor space index have been reduced. That said, when the item was deferred in January, the applicant was given instruction to consult with the neighbors. I'd just like to let you know that none of the people I represent who are close neighbors have been approached. They were not asked. There was no, Zoom meeting or anything set up to, provide information to them collectively or individually. So, and I also, there's a number of other parties I don't represent. My clients have been in touch with them. They were never approached. So it looks like a large number of people who objected to the application in January were not consulted when the committee did ask that they consult with neighbors. So that's their main concern, that they have not been consulted on these new plans at all.
Okay, but notwithstanding that, are they pleased with the changes that have been made?
In general, yes, they are
Okay,
pleased
so
that
then I will. Okay, so I'll just comment that staff, the members, we always say, and I've been on committee for many years. Oh, it's always good to consult with your neighbors. But there's we can't. What should we do? Should we? What type of a penalty can we impose? I don't believe it's mandatory. So they've gone on their own and made changes, and then it's up to the committee to decide if those changes are reasonable. And you're here representing to advise if there are anything that are still outstanding that they're not happy with. So I don't know what else. We're not a punitive body, even in more egregious circumstances than just not consulting with neighbors and coming back with something that may be acceptable. So that's just my comment. Any other issues you'd like to raise other than the fact that they weren't consulted?
I don't think so. They did just want the committee to know that they had not been consulted when that was something that was requested.
Okay. Fair enough. And duly noted. Members, any questions for Ms. Ms. Beaumont? And if not, let's go back to Mr. Gain. I believe you've written in the additional materials your response. So here's your chance to respond to what Ms. Beaumont has said on behalf of the neighbors.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So back in February, the owners did go around. They took their family, knocked on a few doors, and started just to introduce themselves that this is a family moving into the streets. It's not a developer coming around. I can't confirm who she spoke to and who she didn't, but there's a lot of negative pushback towards my client. Doors slammed in her face, not willing to talk. And again, I don't know if it represents her clients or the immediate who they're talking to, but I'm just stating that we did make an attempt, and at one point it just becomes a point where it was quite clear what the neighbors wanted. The letters are quite clear, so we knew what we had to do. We redesigned the house into something that was more favorable, down to one variance. It's about as close to as of right as we can get, except for the floor space index, which is excessively low in this area. And ultimately, we just concentrated with planning, knowing that if planning was on board, it's something that they deem favorable for the area, and it's in character with the neighborhood. So yeah, that was my response, and we never did submit this original petition because it's so tiny and just doesn't really represent. But just given the secondary letters that came from the neighbors, I thought I'd better just put that in for the record.
Okay. Well, yeah, I remember now reading that last night. So there's I don't know if Ms. Beaumont read that letter before she waited on line to make this deputation. But yeah, if they were, treated rudely when they went door to door, and I don't know if that was after the adjournment or first before the adjournment, but either case, why would you do that if that's the attitude you got? And it's unfortunate. I'm sure it wasn't from everyone, but like I said, it's not mandatory, and we're not a punitive body. And we look ultimately at the changes that your client has made. That's ultimately what we're looking at. And members, any comments or questions, or is someone ready for a motion? And I can't see everyone's hands, so please call out. I don't see as many boxes on my cell phone as I did on my iPad.
Taylor.
Okay.
Taylor.
Yes. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I find this to be a very reasonable proposal, a single variance, which, appears to be quite significant, but, the fact is it's a small lot, and its zoning bylaw limits the building size to about 1,500 square feet, which isn't desirable today. So I think it's quite reasonable. I find the variances to be meeting all four tests under the Planning Act, and I move approval subject to urban forestry conditions 1 and 2.
Okay, thank you, sir. Do I have a seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion? I don't see hands, so if you can just call out.
Alderson,
Thank you. All in favor? Again, the staff can tell me if that's unanimous. I assume it is.
it's unanimous.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, and thank you, Mr. Gain and Ms. Beaumont. Item number 31, 66 Brentwood Road South. Again, this was a matter was deferred from the May 19, 2022 hearing. It's to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. There are 5 variances. We have the minutes from the previous meeting. We have support. Looks like from number 64 next door. Planning has conditions of approval, and we have again 5 variances for a detached dwelling with an attached garage. And the speaker on this is Antonella Wild.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Would you like a presentation? I can just maybe update you on what has happened.
Just very briefly, if you.
Of course, as you're aware.
Sure.
So we, as you know, we consulted with the neighbors through the Councillor Grimes' office, and we came to an agreement. And you see from the letter of support that you have now that they are satisfied. So 2 of the variances were eliminated, the other 2 were removed. And we understand the urban forestry condition, as well as we understand and agree with the community planning condition.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Wild. Any questions for the agent, or is someone ready for a motion? And again, I can't see hands.
Any listeners ready to make a motion? Given the process of consulting and reducing the variances, I find the variances are minor in nature. I move for approval subject to, I believe, the forestry condition. 1.
Someone verify that.
Taylor would second that with a friendly
and, planning. Sorry, I just want to clarify. I'm sorry. And planning condition that they be illustrated. Sorry, we'll go to their wording. The proposed development should be constructed as illustrated on the front east elevation plan dated June 16, 2022, had on file. But a committee of adjustment is related to the proposed front main wall height. I believe that's the wording from planning.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Seconder for that motion?
I will second that motion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. All in favor? I assume it's unanimous. Thank you.
Unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Wild. Okay. Item number 32, 312, 314, and 316 Browns Line. It's to construct a 5-story mixed-use building, and there are 5 variances. This matter was deferred at the June 9, 2022 hearing. Transportation has no objection. We have an objection letter from no address. Had just a question whether there's going to be any units set aside for below market affordable housing. And I believe that is basically, we have the materials from the previous hearing. We have speaker on this is Hui Trong, agent for the applicant. Hello.
Yes, hi. It's Hui Trong. I am the agent for this piece of property at 312, 314, and 316 Browns Line. So I was wondering if you have any question, or do you need me to make a presentation?
Okay, I believe. And members, you require presentation? We just have transportation has no conditions. I don't believe planning has weighed in. We have a rental housing forum, I believe, on this.
Danny Bellissimo would like to weigh in with a motion if there are no questions on this one. This is a very exciting building. Having mixed use in Toronto, we need many more of these. And so I find the variances are required to achieve that objective. And I find that they're minor in nature.
Thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. I don't see anything anything from urban forestry or no on this. No. Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion?
Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. All in favor? Okay, the application is approved.
Thank you.
Okay, next application is under number 33, 300 Bartour Road. That's an application, again, that was deferred at the May 19, 2022 hearing. We have a cover letter in the additional materials. This is for a 2-story addition along the south side of the existing dwelling. There's 3 variances, and we have a transportation condition, and we have previous decisions. I don't know if staff could win. It seemed very confusing. There's all kinds of there's noted decision for 300 Bartor going back to 2002. I don't know if there were many decisions or many duplicates, but there looked to be a lot of things going on there. And like I said, the speaker for this is Peter Milson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Peter Milchins as agent for the applicants. My address is 296 Mill Road, Suite PH5, Toronto, M9C4X8. There is a lot of material on this. However, the application is quite straightforward, Mr. Chair. The existing building on the property is approximately 6,300 square meters of a data server farm, which is basically the equipment which is handling this WebEx call and financial transactions and e-commerce and all kinds of other online functions. The existing building is proposed to be expanded with a new 2-story addition at the south, which will approximately double the size of the building. The new addition will be entirely used for the installation of new data server equipment. So it's just electronic equipment and related cooling and electrical services to allow it to function. We are asking for 3 variances. The first is for a reduction in parking. There is a report from our transportation consultants, Next Trans, dated June 8th, confirming that our proposed parking supply of 30 spaces will be more than sufficient for the proposed expanded use. You have before you a memo from Transportation Services dated July 11th, concurring with Next Trans and having no objections to our proposed parking reduction. We also have requesting a reduction in the number of loading bays from 4 to 3, and a variance request to have 30 parking spots in the front yard of the building as opposed to the 18 that are allowed by the bylaw. So both parking and loading are triggered by the fact that the City of Toronto does not have a development or parking standard for data server centers. They treat it as an office building, and it's a completely different use with very few staff actually working within the building. So it's an anomaly in the zoning bylaw, and the transportation report from the city staff and from our consultant indicates that is the case. The third, or actually variance number 2, which relates to the front yard parking, arguably this is not a necessary variance. It was listed on a zoning notice from city planning, so I added it. The existing facility has a 32 parking spot parking lot in front of the building, roughly in the same location. So I would argue it's a grandfathered issue, but nonetheless, we're before the committee, so we're asking for that variance. It's no impact on the soft landscaping of the site, as it will maintain what we already have, and it's quite consistent with other industrial buildings in this area. This is an industrial building in the middle of an industrial area facing Highway 400. So the impacts of anything that we're requesting are none or negligible.
And thank you, Mr. Milchin. So I'm just trying to look. I'm noticing that the planning memo, the traffic memo and the traffic study and the parking justification and all that material was available before the last hearing. So why did this get deferred? You remind me why it was deferred. You seem to have all your ducks in a row before the May 19th hearing.
The evening before the hearing, I received a zoning notice from the zoning folks indicating we needed 189 parking spots.
Oh, okay. So it was,
And the loading space issue was never raised previously, as was the front yard parking was never raised previously. This application or this proposal is before city planning for site plan approval. We've had extensive discussions for over a year with them about what is required. So we're surprised by that late arrival of a zoning notice, and that's why it was deferred, so we could clear that up. Since then, the buildings department zoning review people have confirmed that it's 55 spaces that they consider as being required. So we're really back to what was our original application, with the addition of the loading dock variance and the front yard parking variance.
yeah, okay. And I see your letter dated, part of the materials, May 24th, just after the hearing, and then the next letter dated June 8th.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so you're here. It's only July. Any questions for Mr. Milton, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion? Subject to the transportation, I guess, conditions. Or is there transportation conditions, I guess? So the original memo just said they have no objection.
No
Okay.
condition.
There is no conditions. Okay. Any questions? Yeah.
Yes. I find working in industrial areas and putting in additions is always a difficult task, and I think they've achieved a very great accomplishment here. We have to support industry. I don't feel that the variances have any negative impact on the surrounding area. So I move for approval of the 3 variances.
Okay, thank you, sir. Seconder for that, Mr. Taylor.
It's Taylor Howard, if I may. I have a note here that says there were transportation services conditions set out in the additional materials. I wonder if staff, you can.
Yeah, well, I had a note also. I didn't say additional,
Yeah.
but
It's not coming up here.
I know there's a cover letter.
Mr. Chair, members, I'll bring it up on the screen
Yes.
for you now.
Sorry, it was in the additional materials.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Chair,
In that
members,
case,
it's on the screen.
I'll revise my motion to add the condition of transportation conditions in the additional material.
Okay, and Mr. Taylor, I'll take that as a seconder based on that
I
friendly
will
amendment.
second on that basis, yes.
Okay, all in favor? Unanimous?
Unanimous.
Okay, and thank you, Mr. Milton.
Thank you.
Okay, the application is approved. Next application, item number 34, A, B, and C, 94 Prince Edward Drive South. It's an application to obtain consent to sever the property into 2 undersized lots and to create mutual easement right-of-way. On parts 3 and 4, we redevelop the site of a new detached dwelling, an integral garage, running variances as outlined in application B, and on the assigned part, also redevelop site of a new detached dwelling requiring variances as set out in C, and there's also part 3 and part 2 for rights of ways and easements. We have before us on this matter was deferred previously from the September 20, 2021 hearing. We have the variances from the zoning bylaw, and we have the frontages of the lots set out of 10.16 and 10.22. We do have a cover letter in the additional materials. Perhaps we can get that on the screen. From the homeowners, the Wilson family, and pictures and photos. The speaker on this application is the owners, either Lisa Vanderkooy or Robert Wilson, said they're going to appear by video, and as well, then we have a neighbor from 9 Clusen Park. So welcome to either Mr. Wilson or Ms. Vanderkooy.
It's Robert Wilson speaking. Good afternoon, committee. Thank you for your time this afternoon. I'm joined by our architect who came up with the plan, Mr. Charles Bunker. We originally had this plan deferred from last September due to what we felt was kind of a last-minute forestry department report. We then went to the extent of redesigning the entire plan to accommodate, but we've since had a storm, and one of the trees that was in question has come down. So we're happy to move forward with the Committee of Adjustment today. And I know that the Forestry Department has asked for a deferral, but we're pretty confident that we can move forward with them on a basis which will accommodate. First of all, I'd like to say my wife and I are the homeowners. We're not land developers. We bought the home back in 2018. We've done some renovations, but at the end of the day, this home is not much more than a tear down. Hence, we're looking to propose and build 2 new homes in the neighborhood. Looking at the planning's comments, we're quite surprised, as the last time this plan was forwarded, there was no comments and no opposition, but now they're opposing the proposed draft of the homes and the variances. We feel that meets the criteria, that it is minor in variance. We have a very unique property in our neighborhood. It is the largest lot by far. We're not looking to build monster homes on small lots. And quite frankly, if we were to build out the lot that we have now, it would be the largest home. It would be an obnoxious home on this property, and that's not our intent, and that's not what we're doing. There is a precedent down the street, less than a block away, at 5 in Perry Road, a fairly major townhome development, which, in relative to what we're trying to do and what we're trying to accommodate, is quite obscure. The driveway, we're looking. The reason why we're putting in a shared driveway is to maximize the green space with an attached garage in the back. The current property we now live in has a detached garage in the back, and it's not uncommon in this neighborhood. There'll be lots of parking for the owners of these homes, and if there's the delivery trucks or whatever the case may be, there'll be driveway out front which they can simply pull in and park. Again, the trees, we'll be dealing with the Forestry Department. There's one tree in question, which we've had Mr. Bruce Bostock come and give his opinion. We believe the life of that tree is fairly limited, but we're happy to work with the Forestry Department on a go-ahead basis. So we've had lots of support provided to the committee, a number of signatures from neighbors in the neighborhood who are in support of our proposal. We live here, and we intend on living in the new homes that we built. So I respectfully submit that as my presentation, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. So we do have a letter of opposition from 31 Grenview Boulevard, which looks about behind the property, like 2 houses over. You're right behind 12, and then there's 11 and 9.
Correct.
Looks like a location map. So we're going to have that letter before us, and we also have the negative planning report recommending refusal, which I assume you've read. And the variances are, 6 and 5 respectively. They're recommending refusal. And the neighbor we're going to hear from is behind 2 doors away. I'm just trying to figure out the letter 31 Grenview. Where is Grenview in relation to this? Oh, I see. Okay, Grenview sort of. Okay, I see where that is on the map. I don't see where number 31 is, but I guess they're speaking generally. Okay, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Wilson before we move on to hear from the neighbor who is behind? Okay, if none, let's hear from Christine Haggerty at 9 Cluson Park.
Good afternoon, this is Christine Haggerty. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, thank you for allowing me a couple of moments. I'm looking primarily at the first of the 4 tests, which is that the variances must be minor. And 4 elements don't strike me as being minor. First off is severing a lot into 2 lots, each of which is smaller than the norm for this area, and in particular for that area of Prince Edward Drive. And yet, on each of these 2 smaller lots, building an oversized house that's higher and in coverage, and that's higher than the normal permitted soffit height. to accommodate squeezing two buildings on two small lots, rather than having an attached garage for each house, which is the norm for this whole neighborhood. The idea of having a shared driveway with a mutual easement going to a large garage in the back. The garage is actually wider than the houses. This is a big change for the neighborhood. All of the backyards are primarily used for family and gardening purposes. So we're going to end up with 4 cars, typically. Each house has 2 cars. We'll end up with 4 cars parked back there. I can't see that working out well in the long term. My guess is they're going to go for front pad parking. The letter from the city planning department, they have actually an excellent letter where they've compared the property and the recommended 2 small lots to the neighboring lots. I'd refer you to their comments as well.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone have any questions for the neighbor? Or I just point out, you said that, you know, consents are actually even more so than if you have an existing lot, you come for variances. But I think when you actually try to actually create a substandard lot, both in terms of size and frontage, you got to then look at what you're proposing to build on each of those 2 sides. That's why they make you do that together at the same time. In the old days, you could actually apply for severance and then say, "Oh, I'll come back later and figure out what I'm going to build." So, just want to make that comment. Okay, so back to Mr. Wilson to respond to, I guess, both what the neighbor had to say, and if you've taken a glance at the neighbor from 31 Grenview, which is also technically a part of the record, as if she was here and spoken, and again respond to the negative planning report.
Right. So, with regards to my neighbor's comments, I respectfully submit that detached garages in the neighborhood are not uncommon. There are a number, especially on Prince Edward Drive, there are a number of detached garages behind properties. I will say that, yes, a shared driveway is not common in the neighborhood, with the exception of the townhome development at the end of the street. My neighbor's comments about a parking pad, that is not in the plan, that is not part of the plan, nor are we going to have parking pads. There will be plenty of parking in the garage for the homes. As far as size of the garage, yes, it's a double garage. It fits 2 cars. It's a garage that's designed for 2 homes. So if it's wider than the house, then so be it. We've had a supporting letter from our neighbor that abuts the property in the back, who's seen the plan and supports the plan and is totally fine with the garage. Again, there's an existing garage which offsets in our property. So I submit that in response.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I know that, you know, and one thing in your favor is a higher lot coverage because you're creating a smaller lot, but you haven't gone, you're only at 0.56. You're at 244 per house, more or less, whereas 216. So you're about, you know, 30 meters over, square meters over, which is significant. But the issue, I think, community planning has a bigger problem with the lot pattern and lot size and lot frontage than what you're actually building there. That's my interpretation, but that is obviously something that's major because once you create a lot, that's a lot. Members, any questions or comments for Mr. Wilson, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion? And I can't see hands. So.
Taylor?
Yes, can't see you, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, I find what's being proposed here is a lot more reasonable, actually, than leaving things the way they are. As Mr. Wilson alluded to, this is an extraordinarily large lot. I guess it's about 20.3 odd meters. It could accommodate an incredibly large house, totally out of keeping with the neighborhood. And I think what's proposed here is much more in keeping with the neighborhood. The frontages are not that much less than the zoning minimum. The coverage is not much larger than what is permitted. FSI, not much larger. A trace soffit height increase. And a driveway that, because it's mutual, is you know, more than wide enough. So I think this is a wonderful proposal, and I'm pleased to move approval of it. It and the minor variances, and the conditions would be urban forestry 1 and 2.
Okay, thank you, sir. There's a seconder for that motion. I'll just point out that the guests you're arguing against the community planning, saying, well, if you allow this, you're going to open the floodgates. But you're saying this, as Mr. Wilson said, this is the largest lot. So in terms of the deficiency of the lot size and lot frontage, it would be worse with other lots. So
absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mo seconds the motion. I agree. I find that they look at the footprint of these homes, it's more in character with the surrounding homes. So I'd like to second that motion.
But like you said, is the alternative is building a big honk in one house on this street, which would stick out like a sore thumb. Okay, so we have mover, seconder. We have the conditions. All in favor? Okay, I can't see if everyone's hands are up, staff.
I'm opposed.
Okay, so it carries 4-1.
Hmm?
Thank you. Okay, so thank you to Mr. Wilson and to Ms. Haggerty. And now we move on to our last application, 15 Rosemead Avenue. This matter was deferred at the October 14th, 2021 hearing. And it is consent to sever into 2 undersized lots and on each side to build a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. There are 8 variances and B and C of the variances. Planning is recommending refusal of the application in their memo dated July the 4th. And we have the standard engineering construction services memo and the additional material. Transportation has provided an email that they had no objection the last time it was circulated and that those comments still apply. Something else I can't read. Comments still apply. Oh, based on whatever. I can't read that. Anyway, they say the comments apply. And we have 2 speakers, Ida Evangelista for the applicant, as well as the neighbor across the street at 16 Rosemead. Welcome back. I think you were first application of the day, and now you'll be our last.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Ida Evangelista on behalf of the owners of 15 Rosemead. So this application was before you quite some time ago, back in October, and we had to defer it at that time because there was a tree that was planted by forestry that was in the middle of the driveway. So we had to do we had to reverse the driveways and reverse the plans. So the application, and I trust that you have my submission where I've gone through what the variances are. I understand planning is.
Sorry, I just must interrupt. I just didn't point out that there is a planning recommendation this application be refused. I did say that.
Yes.
Actually. Okay.
Yes. Yes. And
okay.
You have my submission that I've gone through. I've submitted a submission where I've gone through and I've stated what all the variances are. Planning does not support it. They want semi-detached homes because they feel that there's more semi-detached than there are single detached. However, in my submission, you'll notice the variants that we're requesting are minor, very minor in nature. It relates to setbacks, the overall height, which we are over by a very minimal, very minimal. And if we go through the variances, the reason why this is being considered as a flat roof, and if you refer to page 4 of my submission, I included the front elevation of lot 1 and lot 2. And you'll see that there is a roof on the house. The reason why is because of it's a 3-2 pitch, and it's being considered a flat roof home. However, as you can clearly see from the front elevations, it is not. So let's speak to the reason why planning does not support the application. So if we go through my materials that I've submitted,
you'll see that one, there are a lot of homes that what we're proposing is very characteristic in the neighborhood. Two, if you'll also see that of all the newer builds within this area, they are all single detached dwellings and not semi-detached dwellings. And I've provided a lot of evidence to that degree. I've also provided some evidence on page 9 where it lists the lot sizes. So you can see that 25-foot lots in this neighborhood is very characteristic. The building footprint on page 10 also demonstrates, and you can see that there are many different various sizes of lots in this area. But 25-foot lots is a prevailing character in the neighborhood. So what I'm proposing here is quite characteristic to the neighborhood. We do have side yard setbacks. We do have the setbacks to the front porch, and all of which I've shown, you'll see on page 3, where I've outlined quite clearly what the variances are. So with this, and transportation is in support, engineering and construction services is also in support. We've worked with forestry to save the tree that they planted and gone through an additional redesign. And I'm open to any questions you may have. I respectfully submit that the application that you have in front of you does meet the 4 tests.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Evangelista. So I guess your position is you disagree with planning when they say that with an immediate block, the lots on Rosemead have frontages that range between 10.1 meters to 15.2. I think the 13 is what the variance is from, right? 15, 13, but they're saying it's between 10.1, which would result in the creation of 2 lots among the smallest in immediate contact. So you're saying the wider neighborhood as opposed to this particular block?
Well, as you can see, Mr. Chair, I've included several of the lot sizes even on Rosemead. And you can see that there are many 25-foot lots.
Yep, okay. Members, any questions for Ms. Evangelista? If not, we'll hear from the neighbor across the street. No questions? Okay, so let's hear from Francois Willette at 16 Rosemead.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the panel. Yeah, my name is Francois Willette. I've been living across the street at 16 Rosemead for like 9 years now. So I read the staff report from the Committee of Adjustment that says, you know, like sticking 2 narrow houses in a lot that was originally for 1 house is not in line with the neighborhood, and I fully agree. So it's like all houses here have been built like from the 60s, and some of the people who actually built their houses still live there today. So I know this neighborhood very well, and there is nothing that looks like what is proposed to construct in that lot. And again, very narrow houses that will use the entire space is going to look really odd. But this is just you know, one opinion. But what I'm more concerned about is the infrastructure, because this neighborhood has a really old electrical and water infrastructure, and I like doubling the number of houses on the street. Sorry, will have an effect on the supply. Like even now as we speak, you know, in the morning and in the evening, you can see the lights dim when everybody turns their cooker, you know, and do their washing and everything, and even the water pressure goes down, you know, between 6 and 9 in the morning. So again, if we start doubling the number of houses on this street, it's going to have a really bad, like, negative effect on the existing residents and also the new resident, because they will have a nice shiny house and they will have no power. So this is my concern. Yeah.
Yeah. Is the city aware of this? Have you or your neighbors complained to Public Works or to your councilor? Or, you know,
I don't know if there is anything official done, but I spoke with many neighbors and they all had the same comment. And many houses here still have 100 amp, you know, power, and it's really old technology. And if you look at the, you know, the equipment and the post and the transformers, it's like 60, 70 years old equipment. So if we keep adding houses, and like, we're gonna have a problem soon. So again, it's outside of the city's responsibility, but still, I'm just pointing out an issue that if we start, building double, all across the street, we're gonna have a problem of infrastructure soon. So, and again, the fact that this house is not going to look like anything else on the street, that there's no two very narrow houses, stuck together anywhere in the whole street. So it's going to be a real different. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir. It's in that I accept your first comment is you're saying it's too narrow, it's too small a lot for two homes, and it doesn't fit with those are planning comments. The one about hydro is not really an issue with us. I would think that before the city allows someone to get a building permit, they have to satisfy that there's sufficient hydro. We had another situation last week or someone made that argument, and they said they're going to need 4 houses, 4 units, they need 400 amp, and how can they get it? So I'm saying, well, if they can't get 400 amp, they maybe not going to get permission to build. So interesting issue raised, but you did mention planning issues as well. So thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Willett? And if not, let's go back to Mrs. Evangelista to respond. So the issue, I guess, between the overall context or just this particular block, what do we look at in terms of making these approvals? So Mrs. Evangelista, back to respond to Mr. Willett's comments.
Yes, I did have a conversation because I did do a reach out to the neighborhood, and as you see, there is no other opposition. They were quite happy with it. Actually, they preferred the 2 single homes as opposed to the semi-detached homes, and that's why we held our ground, because they viewed the semi-detached in a different light. I can't speak to the infrastructure. I can, when it comes to power and transformers, that's not in my purview. I can speak to anything that relates to the, stormwater management system, engineering, construction services. They've reviewed everything. They have no concerns with it. I did, as you see, that there are many 25-foot lots in this neighborhood. This area is undergoing reinvestment, and building a home today on a 50-foot lot is not as feasible as it used to be once upon a time. And given, the nature that we do need homes in our city, I respectfully submit that the variances are minor in nature, and I believe I've provided all the evidence to support what we're proposing.
Okay, thank you. Panel members, any questions or comments?
Has a question. I was reading the planning report. I don't see anything in here unless I missed it, that they are recommending semis instead of single homes. Was that during a discussion, or did they put that in writing, that they were pushing you to go for semis, which would result in a higher roof line? I believe you said the last time you were here.
That through you, Mr. Chair, that was discussion, and that was the basis of the first time, also part of the first time that I was at committee. That was a strong basis of, their idea for this particular lot, and subsequent conversations with planning to that regard. And I've showed them, they are aware that there are many 25-foot lots in this area, but they've taken a stance that they feel that the semis would be much more appropriate. So wrote their report accordingly.
So it sounds from what you're saying, they are agreeing more or less to 2 homes, but they prefer 2 semis as opposed to 2 singles. So I take that as a bit of confusing when I read their report, because they don't address any of that. But thanks for clarifying that.
But they are asking for refusal.
Yes, I'm aware that they're asking for refusal. I'm just confused about those.
And I am going to side with community planning on this one, because I've been up and down the street, and there are no 25-foot lots on this street. And the agent has made very clear that they're on other streets, but not this particular street. So I'm going to side with community planning and make a motion for refusal.
Okay, so I have a motion for refusal. Do you have a seconder for that motion? And again, I can't see everyone, so I need someone to speak out.
All three of us moved to second it.
Okay.
I think Sophia's hand went up first.
Whose hand?
Sophia's hand went up
Okay,
first.
second
I'm
by
gonna say
Sophia Reddick.
Sophia.
Okay, all in favor?
It's
Okay,
unanimous.
That's
the
unanimous.
application's unanimously
Refusal.
refused. Okay, the application is refused. Note that the variances are higher than the one we just looked at, so it's a question of creating something that the community planning is saying is not compatible, and then again, it was sort of pushing the envelope with the FSIs, the GFAs, and the heights and everything. Okay, sorry, Mrs. Evangelista, the application has been refused, and that was our last application. I think you got 2 out of 3 today, but it is now 4:43, so motion to adjourn.
We're all going to be done by 5, Michael.
Okay, we're done, right?
We're done.
Yes, okay. Oh, I thought you said I didn't think we were going to be done by 5. So
No, we are going to be done by 5. It's
Okay.
4:43.
Good for
Thank you for your patience today.
Yes, okay, and
Thank you,
glad we got
staff.
through everything. Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone. Bye-bye.
See
Good
you,
night.
everybody.
Have a nice evening.
You too.
You too.
See some of you on the 28th.